everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is another episode in the series talking about my university experience, but definitely more focus on the medical course at St Andrews University. To make this video a little bit more structured, I'm going to separate it out into 3 different chunks. Firstly, looking at the course structure, then looking at the teaching, finally looking at the medical societies and social aspect. If all goes to plan, I'll put timestamps in the description box below and you can jump to the relevant parts if you'd like. If you are a medical applicant, a medical school applicant, you may choose to use this structure when you're comparing medical schools or in an interview setting. Before I get onto the main bulk of this video, I just thought I'd give you a quick summary of how I felt overall. I feel like I really enjoyed it overall, and I do think that I've gained a lot more self-confidence if I was to compare myself to a pre-medical school fresher's state. But I don't know how much of that is down to the medical course and how much may be due to my university experience or just generally just growing older as well. Of course, I had to adapt to a lot of different things as well, like working continuously and also getting used to almost a constant examination state, which is something that is at St Andrews. So I think I've had to adapt, and my work ethic has definitely improved as a result of that. Firstly, looking at that course structure. So the course at St Andrews is split up into preclinical and clinical. The whole thing is 6 years, but you have 3 years of preclinical and 3 years of clinical years. If you've heard those terms before but don't know what they mean, I might mention them in my previous videos as well. Easiest way to differentiate between the two: preclinical is mostly learning by bookwork, clinical years are learning by practically being in a hospital, so practical on the job kind of thing. Some medical schools do 2 years preclinical, whereas at St Andrews it's 3 years because you're doing your BSc in your 3rd year. So by the time that you finish graduating, at the end of the 6 years, you have both your BSc and your medical degree as well. After your first 3 years at St Andrews, the last 3 years are done at a partner medical school, which can either be up in Scotland or down in England. If they're in Scotland, they're in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dundee, Aberdeen. Had to make sure I got all of those. And if you go down to England, it will either be Manchester or Barts. There is also, I think I'm aware of, like a Cambridge route where like one student can go to Cambridge for their clinical years if they score like super highly throughout. Yada yada yada. I don't really know the ins and outs of that, didn't look into that. If you're interested in that, you can always just search that up. We also have a Canadian route as well, where Canadian students come over and do their preclinical first 3 years at St Andrews, then move over to Edinburgh, and then do their final year back in Canada. So you have a chunk of students that are all Canadians as well, which is quite nice and not like any other medical school. In terms of the course structure itself, it is something that they like to call a spiral curriculum, which means that concepts are introduced at an early stage, almost like a little bit like an information overload, but then reintroduced as you go through the years. So by the time that you finished, you feel like you've gone over things several times, and I think that promotes learning to long-term store as opposed to short-term store. If you're a medical school applicant, it's worth looking at the different medical schools and the way that they teach, because they're not all the same. Now on to examinations. So examinations are conducted every 6 to 7 weeks. You have midterms and end of terms. Each semester, which they like to call it a term, is a completely different topic, and you therefore have exams right in the middle and then also right at the end. Those that are right in the middle are multiple choice examinations, and then those at the end, you have 1 multiple choice paper and 1 short written answer paper. At the end of each academic year, you also have practical exams, which are OSCEs. Before I move over to the teaching section, I'm going to give my opinion on the course structure. Having 2 lots of 3, I think, really does help break it down into manageable chunks. 6 years does seem like a very long time, but 2 lots of 3, it just seems a lot more manageable, even though it's the same amount of time really. I know it's also really sad to the thought that you're going to be moving away from your friends that you've had for the past 3 years because you're going over to different medical schools, but I guess that's what other people doing other courses have to do anyway. They move on after 3 years, 3 to 4 years, so it's not that bad. And if you try and take like a positive spin on it, it basically means that you end up expanding your network, because you've got people that have gone to different medical schools, and by the time that you're a professional, that just works out to be a great thing if you ever need that. I'm also definitely one of those people that also likes to talk about like personal growth and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that moving on after 3 years, like picking up and starting afresh again, it teaches you to adapt to new environments. And I mean, it teaches resilience, it teaches all those kind of good positive traits. So if anything, I love that kind of thing. So yeah, it's good from my side anyway, my opinion. Unlike other medical schools, St Andrews is quite small. So if you're talking about the first 3 years of undergraduate medicine, each year has around 150 students, and that can go up or down, obviously, depending on whatever happens that year. So if you think about it, 150, 3 years, and they've only just started their postgraduate or their graduate entry medicine courses within the last 2 years. So the amount of students that actually in the medical school is really small, and that has its benefits and obviously its downsides, but I'll mention a little bit about that in the social aspect. But overall, I think it's quite nice. It's a little bit of a change to other medical schools. Now moving over to teaching. As I mentioned, these are preclinical years, the bookwork years, and this is predominantly done through the use of lectures, which are then supplemented with small group tutorial sessions with between 8 to 10 students. These tutorial sessions can be going through clinical cases together, or even just kind of used as a supplement to ask questions outside of lectures. And also, one thing which actually is, I think, honed in by St Andrews is communication skills. So you've got these communication skills sessions where you'll have to go over the different techniques perhaps, or going over the different formats and frameworks, and then we would have practical sessions where you would go in these rooms that had a camera in the corner of the room, so like a fly on the wall, with an actor, and have to perhaps like break bad news or encourage them to take up different healthy lifestyle measures or whatever. And then these simulated patients would go through a whole load of different emotions, just so you could get used to patients that might go through being quite angry or upset or whatever. And I think that is something that is very different to other medical schools. We were definitely put on our toes from day one in terms of communication skills, and taught to basically enhance them really early on. We were also recorded when we had to review our practical skills as well, and after we'd kind of learnt about one, we'd have to record ourselves performing it on another medical student, and then review those and reflect on those, so that, and submit them as part of our portfolio. Another tool that was used to supplement our anatomy learning was dissections. We had small groups of students that were given a cadaver to work on throughout the year, and then when you learnt a particular system, you dissected that particular system in the body as well, which I think worked really well, because as soon as you had learnt a particular section in anatomy in a lecture, 2 to 3 days later you'd be in the dissection room dissecting that exact same part as well. Not all medical schools do dissections in the same way, so if you're a medical applicant, have a look at the course information online for all the different medical schools to get a bit more information about that. Just to give my opinion of all the teaching side, the lectures were all recorded, which is great for going over the information again if you feel like you've missed anything in the lecture, so you can go over it in your own time, or perhaps for the first time in your own home. Everyone has their own different lecture styles, and then obviously I did have my favourite lecturers and those that I wasn't too keen on their styles, but that will vary from person to person. I thought the group tutorial sessions were a great way to get to know people, and in terms of communication skills, it was amazing to be able to have that opportunity to then watch yourself and almost become hyper aware of what you're doing in certain situations. It may be what you're verbally saying, it may be your body language. Some people tend to have like small kind of things that they do, like tapping or whatever, and it's great that you can pick up on those in a session, in a nice environment where everyone is really supportive. I do think that out of everything, out of the course, that's one of the things that I'm very grateful for, and I know that it's very different compared to other medical schools. And it's something I can use not only in my profession, but also later on in life as well. The anatomy sessions, I do think, are an invaluable tool to learning. Having learnt anatomy for the past 3 years, I can definitely say that reading it out of a book and from a lecture, like from lecture slides, it can be done, but definitely having the actual structure in front of you, or going through the process of getting through different layers to get to that structure, definitely does help learning. It helps consolidate your learning because you can appreciate its relation to everything else inside of a human body. Unfortunately, I can say that I think I only appreciated the full value of these towards the end. So if there was something that I could change, I would definitely go back and probably make full use of those compared to what I did. Now going over to that final section, medical societies and the social side. In terms of medical societies, considering it's a very small medical school, I actually think there's quite a few, and they've all vary in terms of those that are more geared towards medical professions and those that are more just kind of chilled, relaxed kind of vibes, and just almost like a social kind of aspect. So something that I didn't know about before going to medical school is something called SNIMS, which is like something that all the Scottish medical schools take part in, as well as Queen's in Northern Ireland. And it's like an inter medical school like sports thing where each medical school hosts every year, and they take the students. You end up staying with the medical students that are doing the same sport as you, and the first night you go out, the second day you end up having like a big, like almost like sports day within your respective sports. I think my first time I went in my second and third year, so the first time I went, I did hockey, and it was definitely more like serious, more competitive, whereas in my third year I did ultimate frisbee. I've never played ultimate frisbee before, but it was so much fun. I definitely would play it again. It was muddy, it was like everyone was just totally getting involved, and majority of us actually didn't know how to play before, never played at all. We were learning as we were going along, but it was just really good fun. And then that night as well, everyone goes out. It's just a bit of fun. It's a good opportunity to meet other medical students, and for those that are going from St Andrews to partner medical schools in Scotland, I guess it gives them a really good opportunity to meet medical students there as well. And then you've got the thing that St Andrews is much smaller than other medical schools, which means that quite counterintuitively, I feel that you actually end up socialising with more people than if you did in a larger medical school, compared to what I've heard from other friends, because you end up staying within your small groups if you go to a larger medical school, whereas in a smaller one, everyone kind of talks to everyone, which is really quite nice. Overall, what's my opinion? Like I said, having a small medical school is great for getting to know lots of different people, and obviously the whole networking thing and branching out is really great because we'll all go to different areas, we'll all meet other people, and then we'll kind of maybe cross paths again, which is really nice to think about. I guess the downside to having a small year group is that it can feel a little bit like school because everyone does know everyone, and yeah, I think it's just a little bit like that sometimes. I really had so much fun going to SNIMS, and I can honestly say that in terms of memories from medical school, that's probably up there. In terms of even like my experience at uni as well, it's definitely up there. Just to sum up this video then, would I recommend? I guess I'm just biased, yeah. Do I have anything to really compare it to? No. That's the thing. Normally when there's like reviewing videos about things, there's something to compare it to, but I've only been to one medical school, so can't really compare it to anything. But I do think that overall the medical school has shaped me into the person that I am today. And yeah, I mean, however much that may be, whether it's down to uni, overall, whatever, I don't know, but it's done something. That brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found it interesting listening to what I had to say. If you have any specific questions about St Andrews Medical School, drop a comment down below. Don't forget to like this video and of course subscribe to my channel so you can keep updated with all my videos, and I hope to see you next time.